Welcome to the Prosperity Gap, where we discuss the financial gap that exists between where we are and where we should be. It's time to bridge that gap.
Hey, Prosperity Nation, welcome to the show. Today's show is being brought to you by eTrends Tax and Accounting. If you've not yet had a chance to get your taxes filed for this year, please go to etrendsgroup.com. They have a number of packages that will help you get your taxes filed, make sure you get your accounting done, and that you're staying in compliance with the IRS and the various government agencies. Very excited for today's show. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to our show, please take the opportunity to do so. We want to make sure that you're getting the latest updates. We release a new show every Friday. We want to make sure that you're able to listen to these and to help continue to bridge that gap that you have between the life you're currently living and the financial life that you should be. For today's show, I have with me Julie Judd. She is a personal finance master coach. Very excited to have her with me today. Her company name is the Money Wisdom Coach. And Julie, with that, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David, for inviting me. It's truly my pleasure to be here and talk to your audience about one of my favorite topics.
It is also one of my favorite topics. I always say that every show is exciting to me because I get to meet new people, and I also get to talk about money, which is something that I hope others can get a passion for so they can start changing their lives. Julie, how did you start down your financial path?
Well, David, personal finance is something that I've been interested since very young. The idea that you can use money as a tool to create wealth really captured my attention. And it wasn't really about getting rich. It's that I wanted to be able to enjoy life without the worries of debt and all the other things that people are boggled by. It's just, to me, it was more about having that complete freedom to do the things that I love. I love to travel. I love to plan activities with my family and friends, and just to enjoy life. And I think money really allows you to do that if you use it as a tool to give you that complete peace of mind. In fact, I'll tell you, when I was in high school, I remember being so excited to get the mail because at the time I was subscribed to Money Magazine. The internet wasn't something that was a thing back then. I'm dating myself here. But I remember reading the articles and having this epiphany about compounding interest. You know, how you can save money and that interest accumulates more than what you can actually contribute. So that was a big aha moment for me. And later on in my college years, early in my college years, I worked for a financial institution. And that's where I learned what it means to be responsible with credit and the impact that I can have in people's finances.
So when you were this teenager getting Money Magazine, which I also did the same thing, I was that nerdy teenager that was looking at finance when I was a kid. Were these principles taught in your home, or where did you get this interest in finance?
Well, I grew up with my grandparents who at the time were retired. They were not of financial means. They had very low resources, but they did what they could. And debt wasn't something that was prevalent. I think it had more to do with even knowing, about how to use credit and things like that. But I do remember my grandmother being very responsible with her money. She didn't necessarily teach me the tactical things that comes with personal financing and the management of it, but just from observation, I think that's where I picked up at least some of the basic information.
Very interesting when we're observant what we can learn. And many times it can be good or bad. Many times it can be that we learn from example, or we learn from a bad example how to do something different, and we make those commitments. Right. Obviously, you've taken that in your own life and you've applied it in your life to get yourself in a financial position where not only you're stable, but there's a big difference between being stable yourself and applying these principles and wanting to teach them to other people. What is it that got you to the point that you said, look, this is beyond me. I really need to start helping other people now?
Well, for many years, I was always the person in my circle that people would come to for financial advice. But I'll tell you, last year was really where it all started for me as far as widening my audience. I was on a flight and I was listening to another passenger's conversation a few rows ahead of me. And she was relating her personal struggles with finances to another passenger. But what really impacted me was that her sense of defeat in her voice. She felt like she had no other choice, and that was the way of life, and that was the way it was going to be. So on that flight, it just led me to think, I can help people, and I need to do it in a way that I can approach a wider audience. And that's when I decided, I'm going to look into become a finance coach. So I took some training on how to deal with different personalities, understand the root cause of people's money issues, because it's not just the transactional. It's not just not knowing how to do it. There's so many things that come with managing money. Some of it could be relational. Some of them could be perspective, the way they think about money, either the way they were raised or experiences that they had themselves, and also even how to communicate with debt collectors and all the other factors that me personally, I might not have that experience, but I needed to know in order to be fully prepared to assist other people in their journey.
It's amazing how much finance affects our lives, but yet how unprepared most people are. And that's where I'd really like to spend our time today focusing is on what people can do to get started. As a coach, obviously that's your job, is to take people from zero or a point where they're just saying, I need to change, to a point they can achieve success. So maybe we can start with some of the basics. I mean, when you come across someone that says, look, I need help, what's the first approach that you've got to take to that person?
Well, I think this situation is sometimes people are confused. They might be intimidated by the terms that they hear about money, and they just don't know where to go. So sometimes they give up before they even start and then go back to feeling hopeless like they were before. But I think the very first thing I tell them is develop a positive mindset. Once you have a positive mindset of what you can do, anything's possible. So decide the life that you want to have and how money can enable that lifestyle. Because money is just a tool to get you to where you want to go. It's nothing more than that, really, to me. Finance, to me, I think it should be simplified. You need to make it convenient and easy for people in order for them to feel like, yes, I can do this. So once they have adjusted their mindset, then we can talk about the actual transactional piece. Number one is become a master at budgeting. So for a lot of people, they don't like to use the B word, budgeting, because it feels so restricted. So I like to call it my spending plan, the roadmap that I'm going to use on how I'm going to manage my money. So this will help me understand what is my income, where I'm going to spend my money, and how I'm going to cover the necessities and everything else beyond. Once you have complete control of your operational household finances, your income and expenses, then I think that big door opens on what you can do with it.
Prosperity Nation, I hope you're listening to Julie, especially as she talks about the mindset. Because if you look at anything in your life, if you change your mindset, you can accomplish way more than you ever thought you were going to before. It's been very interesting. This morning, I've spent the day working with one of my good friends who's very depressed right now. She's really struggling in her life. She doesn't have enough money, unfortunately. She's disabled and she's on a very fixed income, and it's created havoc. And so we've talked a lot about her attitude and her approach. And I've watched over the last 4 or 5 years as she's dealt with these issues, times where she's had a positive attitude, she's actually made great progress. In fact, there's been some times she's got part-time jobs. She's been able to help improve her financial situation. And then she gets down into this situation where she's struggling mentally, and all of a sudden everything's falling apart and nothing can seem to work. So Prosperity Nation, what Julie's saying is so important. You've got to get the right mindset, and where a coach comes in is they can help you get there. They help keep you motivated. They help keep pushing you along. And I think that's what's great about having someone like Julie in your life, is they can help you get the mind right. And then just as she says, now you start working on the numbers. And whether it's a budget, we're like you, we call it a spending plan, Julie. We call it the same thing.
Good.
Whether it's a budget or a spending plan, you've got to get it on paper. So once people do that, Julie, what's the next step? I mean, now we have it all laid out. We know what's coming in. We know what's being spent on a monthly basis. Where do we go from here?
So Dave, I want to take you to the next step, but in a more strategic way. I love planning and I love being strategic and coming up with ways to get things done. But I don't want people to get out of that debt just for numbers' sake. People want to live their dreams. They have aspirations of things they want to do, but they don't know how to approach those big dreams in a more tactical manner. So to me, the way I see it is, make an approach that makes things easy for people. That's no different than when you're training because you want to get in shape. You know, it's given a strategy and a plan to your goals. So to me, my job is to empower people to take control of their lives and their financial dreams. So one of the things that I always tell my clients is that when we first meet is, tell me where you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. What are the things that you want to do that money can enable you to do that, or are hindering those dreams from becoming a reality? I get them to dream a little bit because those dreams are the wings that are going to help them fly. They have to have a motivation. They have to have that dangling carrot that gives them that focus to keep going. Otherwise, they can easily quit and, you know, and not get to where they want to go. To me, it's not just for the sake of the numbers. You have to have a motivation to help you to get there.
And Prosperity Nation, that motivation can be two things, I believe. Number one, it can be a positive motivation, meaning just as you're talking about, 5-year goal, we're looking at the positive side. The other is if you've gotten yourself so messed up financially, it's the reality, I may be out on the streets tomorrow. If my finances don't improve, unfortunately, the consequences are going to be so severe that it's going to disrupt my life. It's not going to allow me to accomplish the things I want to. Now, hopefully for most people, you're getting caught before you get to the desperation, to where you can really see the inspiration and you can listen to what Julie's saying here and say, look, I do have a plan. So you get this plan in their minds, you get the motivation going. Now what's next?
So one thing I want to go back real quick is not to dwell on the past. If you stay on the past too long, you're not going to move forward. So I think it's important to be grateful for the journey and learn those lessons through your experiences to help you track through your progress. That will bring you motivation. So back to the tactical piece. Once you have a spending plan, one of the things I like to do with the spending plan is I like to create a weekly spending plan, but with a yearly range view. That would help me understand what is the impact of the actions that I'm doing today. You know, how is that the impact of what I'm going to do this weekend? How is that going to impact by next month? You know, and it will also help me forecast my future, so that I know how much I need to save for X thing that I want to do throughout the year. So I think that bringing that awareness through those small steps on a weekly basis, I think that's very helpful.
I love your approach too, that the fact that you look at it over a year as well, because if you look at it daily, sometimes it can get a little discouraging. I save $5 by not going out to eat today, or I save $10. Well, that doesn't seem like that much. $5 and $2,000 or $3,000 a monthly income, that's not theoretically going to change my life. But what if I do that day after day after day for a 12-month period of time? Well, now I've got enough money. I can pay my insurance maybe. Maybe I can buy a new television set if I need a new television set. Maybe I can go on a vacation, whatever it might be. That over time, that amount adds up so much, or hopefully plan for retirement if they've not done that part. So I love the approach that you're taking there.
Exactly. So the next thing I would say is, if you have debt, take care of that first. That is for sure interest, and it really becomes counterproductive if you are allocating money to other areas like saving or even investing when you're paying high interest on debt. Take care of the past before you take care of your future. To me, paying debt while you are trying to save, it's like running up an escalator. It's exhausting. So build a solid foundation on your finances before you can build for your future.
Great advice. And one of the things too, Prosperity Nation, I hope you understand about this is you're going to hear a lot of financial investors that are going to say, leverage yourself, put money out there and then just use leverage. Well, two bad things with that. And what Julie's telling you here is so correct. Two bad things with that. Number one, you get over leveraged and the market turns, you're going to struggle substantially. And number two, if you're in a financial position where you have substantial amounts of debt, the chances of you getting a return that's higher than what you're actually paying in interest is going to be very minimal, the chance of doing that. Now, for people that are wealthy, they can borrow money at very cheap rates and are usually getting substantial returns on their investments because of having the right product. Completely different story. But for most of us, that's not the case. So we need to be wise. Get those paid off. 9 or 10% rate interest loan is costing you probably hundreds of dollars a month that you don't need to be spending.
Right. And I always say, take the opportunity and avoid the chance. You know, there's a risk that comes with investing. And your debt payment is probably the safest investment you can make. That interest on that debt is there for sure. The interest that you can make on investing, it fluctuates.
And we've hit one of those times right now in the economy that it's very hard for people to see this. If I looked the other day, I was on Vanguard, I'm looking at some of my accounts. So they've done 28 to 30% over the last year. It's very hard not to get sucked into that, to say, oh, I'm going to put all my money in here. I can make 30%. Well, the reality of it is that's not going to last forever. It's like every bust that we've ever had. We go back to pre-2008. We go back to pre-2000 when we have the dot-com boom and bust. We have all these issues that historical performance doesn't mean future results. So again, listen to what Julie's saying. Don't get caught up in the hype of what's going on thinking, well, I'm paying 10%, I can make 30 because that 30 is not going to go on forever. In fact, if you look at historical returns, most of those investments are going to show 7 or 8%, maybe not even that much.
Exactly. Well, on the other hand, you might be paying on a credit card that is at 27%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to think, do you want to pay other people? Do you want to pay yourself?
Yeah. And very wise advice. So Julie, once we get the debt under control and start working down that process, what's the next steps? What do we do next?
Well, I always think that people need to streamline and declutter their finances to make it easier on the management part of finances. Having too many accounts can be confusing to people, so go paperless. Make things as easy as you possibly can make it, because if you become so overwhelmed, you're going to lose track and you're not going to be organized. You're not going to be able to see where you're going within your roadmap. The third thing I would say is automate. Automate as much as possible. I think if you can make it easy for your money to go in the buckets where you want it to go, that's one less thing you have to worry about. And I think that's one of the reasons why the 401k is such a successful tool. It's because you don't see it. You don't spend what you don't see, and it's automatic. I think if people had to manually put money on their 401k, I can imagine probably at least half of the people would probably cancel some of those transactions every so often.
Very important rule, pay yourself first, which is what's being done when you automate your 401k versus letting come later. And you're exactly right. We've seen it. We see what happens when people are left to their own devices, where something's going to come up, something's always going to pop up. But if it's coming out on a monthly basis, you have no issues. And I am a big fan of automation. I have almost all of my bills automated. Anything that we don't, my wife takes care of, so I don't have to deal with that much. But we try to automate everything we can so we just don't have to worry about it. Now, with that, I think there's one other concern, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit, Julie, is if we automate payments, obviously people get them on there and then just pay forever, not realizing that they're still paying for stuff. Is that an important part of what you do, is to analyze where the money's going to make sure people don't have maybe a gym membership that they haven't used in 3 years, or a subscription to something that they're not even using anymore?
Right. I think you do need to automate your bills. However, that doesn't mean that you're going to overlook what your finances are doing. You do need to have complete control of where your money is going. And that's what the spending plan comes along. You actually get to see where each dollar is going. And if you see that, you know what, I canceled this subscription. Why am I still paying for it? Why is it coming out of my spending plan? So automating does not mean that you are not in control. You still,
Automating is not ignoring. Those are two
exactly.
completely separate terms. Where do you see people waste the most amount of money? Is there one area that you see that most people can really start cutting their budget down?
The easiest area I think where people can make improvements is eating out. People don't realize, if you actually looked at your finances and how much money you're spending eating out, easily, you can probably save easily $100, $150 a month. The other area that is not so easy for other people, I think it's vehicles. You know, that's a little tougher. But if you can manage your expenses when it comes to transportation and food, I think you've won half the battle right there.
How do you get people to change their habits? I know I've had my own experience and own journey. Part of it was health driven, that I had to change my habits. But when you talk to a normal person that's used to eating out maybe every day for lunch, every weekend, how do you get them to buy into the fact that they need to start changing their habits, and by doing so can have a whole different life?
Well, I'm going to go back to that dream. Do you want to, you know, I had a client the other day who said, I want to be a writer. I want to be able to quit my job and be a writer. So I always take them back to that dream. Okay, well, if you really want to be a writer, this is what's going to take. So choose. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. Do you want to continue spending $20 on drinks on Friday nights? Or do you want to make a couple of changes in order to be able to fulfill those dreams? And I don't say people don't spend. It's spend within your plan.
And I think that's great advice, because we all still have to do certain things to keep ourselves sane, to keep ourselves moving along. I mean, for one person, now that doesn't mean, hey, we've got to go out and eat every day to be able to keep ourselves sane. Maybe it's on the weekend, maybe it's once every 4 weeks, whatever it might be. I know for us, it's been very interesting. In fact, last night I was calculating it. We had chicken Alfredo for dinner last night, and I have 3 kids still at home, so there's 5 of us, and I was actually calculating what it was costing us. And it ended up costing us about $8 to $10 for that meal. And we ended up having food for all of us to bring for lunch today. And I thought, if I would have gone out with 5 kids, 3 kids and my wife and I, the minimum we would have spent was $50 here on the island of Puerto Rico. I guess if we went to the cheapest fast food place, it may have been $25. But for average would have been at least 50. And here we provided 2 meals for less than $10 for all of us that we were super happy with. We all enjoyed it. My son cooked. We all loved the food that he cooked, and we're just very excited.
Yeah, there are many ways to save. You can buy in bulk. You can find coupons. I mean, there's so many ways to cut your expenses. But you really need to look at your budget and allocate an amount to each category, and then keep your dream as your focus on where you want to be. I think that, to me, that's critical. Have that motivation there in mind. And I think once you have that motivation, then you know the things that you have to cut, and you even get creative, you know, what you have to do in order to get what you want, what you need, and still fulfill those dreams.
It almost turns into a game. At least I see it with people we work with. I know in my own life, it almost becomes a game to see, how much can I save? I enjoyed saving this so much. What can I do next? How can I adjust? But that doesn't happen overnight. I realize that for most people, it's not going to happen in the first month. In fact, for most people, I would assume the first month, at least my experience has been, it's kind of like a honeymoon, that they're very excited about it. They're feeling the pain. They're getting excited about the motivation. But then months 2, 3, 4 come, and all of a sudden the temptations come in. The motivation may not be as clear as it was. Any advice for the people as they're going through that real time before they hit a point that it's become a habit, to get them through to the next step?
Well, I think that once you know what you want, you know, what is it that you wanted to do with your money, focus on that carrot, but be mindful of your resources. If it's an income problem, maybe you need to get a second job. If it's a spending problem, maybe you need to get creative with your budget, and maybe you need to get a roommate. Maybe you can get a friend that can be your buddy and give you that extra motivation. You need to have that reason of why you're doing what you're doing. Back to what I was saying, it can't be just for the numbers sake. If you're just going about your spending plan just because you want your numbers to be positive, that it's a good thing, but it can easily unmotivate you. Like you said, after a couple of months, you can easily derail.
When you look at your job as a coach, what does that time frame usually look like? I mean, obviously there's an initial period. I assume that there's a lot of interaction, a lot of stuff being done, and then there becomes this point where people kind of get it or putting it together. How long are you seeing that you're usually having to work with people to get them doing the things they need to?
My job as a coach is not to be their coach forever. My job as a coach is to help them bring awareness to their finance, the things that are boggling them with their finances, and then educate them on the things that they need to understand in order to get them to where they want to be, and empower them so that they can make better decisions on their own. I am there as their accountability partner and to hold your hand through the process, but my goal is that in about 6 months, they will be able to, on their own, understand the process, master their spending plan, and be able to make healthy financial decisions. You know,
one of the concerns that many people have when they're starting with a coach is, how can I afford a coach when I can't afford everything else? What's your answer to that? And tell people why that's the wrong choice for them.
well, I say, how many people are at restaurants right now that are broke? Think about that. Yes. So think about, some people say, you know, a coach is so expensive. And I say, compared to what? You know, if I can show you how I can turn your finances around, and whatever you'll end up spending, you will more than triple that by the end of the year. Wouldn't you want to invest in that? Absolutely. It's helping you bring awareness to your finances so that you can grow that investment. You know, it's a short investment. It's an investment for a short amount of time for a long-term return. You're going to have that forever. You'll be able to change your life with the things that you have learned and the habits that you will ingrain. And that's something that you'll be able to take it with you. And
I really appreciate what you say there, because if you look at financial coaching, I see it much like a college education. You go to college so you can make money the rest of your life. Once you get financial coaching, just as you say, you don't lose that. You don't all of a sudden become financially dumb. Now, you may make financially dumb decisions, but you know in your mind still what you should be doing to make your finances work. And if you have a situation where you lose a job, you have a situation where finances get tough, well, now you have the knowledge to get back out of it, to quickly get out of it, where maybe before it took you a year or 2 years to get out of. Now, maybe in 2 or 3 months, you can get out of it because of the knowledge you have. So completely agree. The money that you spend on financial education, financial coaching is going to pay off hundreds of times over during your lifetime, because it's something you'll be able to keep forever. And it's something you're going to use forever. You know, I don't still use that English literature class that I took in college. I'm sorry, that's just not me. I'm not doing anything with it. But every day I spend money and every day I make money. And so it's very important I understand how I deal with it as I go forward. And it's the same for everyone else.
Right. And another thing I would say is, you know, everybody's on a different path. So understand that all the things that you see, you know, now in the social media era with Instagram and YOLO and FOMO and all those things, you can't be worried about what somebody else is thinking. You just have to do you. So just like, let's say you need to go work out for a year to go to the gym, you know, that's what you're thinking. I want to be in shape. I need to go work out, and you're dating and you feel bad about it. Don't worry about that. Just go. Just take that first step and go. There will be somebody there, me as a coach, to guide you along and coach you through. Know that you do deserve to be there. Don't worry about what other people think, you know, how people, how you might perceive, because I think it's a perceived notion that people are judging you. You are on your own path and you're setting yourself free.
Just because you're broke, financially doesn't mean that you're broke as a person. I think what you're saying there is so critical. People need to understand. We all have our own addictions. We all have our own problems. That's part of life. Trials help us get stronger. They help us build relationships. So take it as an opportunity to learn. Just as she said in the beginning, as Julie said in the beginning, don't worry about the past. That's over. That's done. We can't change it. But make the steps to go forward and get through those times. Again, today we're talking about finance, but it could be your weight, it could be alcoholism or some other addiction or challenge that people have that we need help getting over. And as we spend time on it, we focus on it, pretty soon those weaknesses can become huge strengths in our lives.
Right. That, I think that's going to be your what you're going to take with you as lessons learned. You build experiences, you've made mistakes, learn from those lessons, but move on. Keep a positive mindset that yes, you can do it. And it's not about income. Some people think, oh, well, somebody has financial freedom because they make a lot of money. That's actually not the case. A teacher or an accountant or and person in IT, in any kind of profession, you can make it in whatever kind of income. In fact, it's been proven that many times the people with the highest incomes are the ones that have the most debt because they feel they need to prove themselves to other people. They need to spend money on those things that show the perceived wealth. So it's not about income. It's not about income. Remember, it's how much you keep. That's not how much you make.
Money definitely does not buy happiness. I saw that very early on in my accounting career. I worked with a lot of very wealthy people that were just buying stuff. They were buying multiple homes. They were buying all these cars. They were buying boats, all these things. And what they were doing is spending their whole lives just taking care of their stuff. Here I was going, and I'd go on vacation, stay in a beautiful resort, enjoy my time, spend time with my kids. They'd go to their beach house and spend half the week doing repairs and trying to fix the place up. And I realized that these people were just buying stuff that was just making their lives worse. And over time, I've seen many of my clients sell their stuff just because it said it's too much. I've got to get myself back to a point where I have a simpler life. And it's very important, Prosperity Nation, that you do realize that income doesn't bring happiness. Yes, you've got to have a certain level to be able to provide for the basics of life, but you can be extremely happy no matter where your income level is, as long as you're moving forward and being responsible and taking care of the commitments that you have. So Julie, unfortunately, we're at the end of the show. Any parting comments that you would like to share to our listeners before we end?
Well, going back to what we were saying about having the right mindset, keep your head up. Know that this is possible for you, regardless, again, of your income. It's a matter of changing your mindset of what's possible and wanting to have control of your money.
Thank you so much. Julie, could you let the listeners know how they can get a hold of you, website, whatever that's best way to get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So I'm online on themoneywisdomcoach.com. You can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram.
Julie, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you for inviting me. It was truly my pleasure.
Prosperity Nation, you have been listening to The Prosperity Gap. We've had Julie Judd with us today. Hopefully you've gotten some great tips, insights to help you get started on your financial journey, to start making those changes that you need to make to achieve financial freedom. Our show today has been brought to you by eTrends Tax and Accounting. Again, if you've not had a chance to file your income tax return yet, you need help, go to etrendsgroup.com. They have a number of packages to help make sure that you get your tax and accounting needs taken care of. In the meantime, good luck as you try to bridge your prosperity gap between the life you're currently living and the one you should be.